late 90s all the way up until about 2006, something like that, the chopper craze was at its zenith. And Harley Davidson was smart enough to take advantage of it, kind of ride the coattails, and profit off the fact that couldn't everybody just go down the road and pay $100,000 for a West Coast chopper. They couldn't go get a Borgette or a Orange County, but they could go down to the dealership and pick up a bike that they could afford that would put them in the wind, kind of, chopper-esque or, whatever it was. Now, and Harley was smart to take advantage of that. Now, one of the things that was a selling point for Harley Davidson for decades was the fact that the resale value was really high. And this was deliberate. They made it a point to only put out a certain number of units every year to make sure that people who wanted a specific bike, if it wasn't on the floor and there was one that was real clean with only a few thousand miles on it, they'd go ahead and get that. And remember, these are back in the day, and I lived through it. And if you watch my twin cam hate video, then you know that I waited 6 months to get my 99 Dyna. But this was back in the day where you came in, if they didn't have what you wanted, you put $1,000 deposit down and you waited until the dealership sent them exactly what you were looking for, one of those models. Now, and let me know in the comments below if y'all remember how it was back then, or if you lived through it yourself. Now, that's how they did it all the way up until 2003. Now, I was there. I had boots on the ground through the whole 100-year anniversary, and don't get me wrong, it was I feel really proud to have been a part of that. And to meet Willie G, he signed a gas tank for me, and to be a part of this monumental milestone that the motor company had gotten to. Now, you got to realize, they were the first motorcycle company that made it 100 years without ever having to close down their parent plant, where it all started. Royal Enfield technically is slightly older, but the fact of the matter is they closed down the original plant in Britain a long time ago. Yes, the subsidiary in India still continue to manufacture bikes, but technically that didn't open up till way after 1901 or whenever they started. Now, so they were riding this high, this euphoria of being this 100-year-old motorcycle, making it further than so many had done before. But they started changing their business plan. In 03, they knew that because of the 1954, the 50-year anniversary Panhead, how it's such a collector's item, it being the 50-year anniversary, and I used to have one, they knew that people would want the 100-year anniversary bike. So they started spitting these things out like hotcakes. I would sit there at the dealership, standing in the service bay door, and look at the trucks that were being offloaded, or the bikes being offloaded to trucks. And I'm just sitting there. We're doing PDIs left and right, pre-delivery inspections. And I look over at Joe Ed Chandler, he's my service manager, and I said, I don't think this is a good idea. And he looked at me and he said, I don't think it's a good idea either. People were coming in and trading in their used bikes left and right, picking up a 100-year anniversary bike, because they were thinking this thing is a hell of an investment. This is going to be such a collector's item. Now, y'all know as well as I do, there's so many of them out there, you can pick them up for a dime a dozen. So they didn't turn out to be collector's items. But here's where Harley, they started messing up, in my opinion. And because they were flooding the market with the 03s, the used bike market was getting flooded as well, which was driving down the prices of used bikes. On top of the fact that in 03 and then later, you didn't have to wait on a bike anymore, which that took away that selling point of Harley Davidson being an investment that brought people who were thinking about a Victory or thinking about a Honda over to a Harley. Now, 04, we were booming. 05, we were booming. 06, we were booming and I left. But what they didn't realize and they didn't think about, and no manufacturer out there, none of us thought about this, was '08 when the recession hit. Harley Davidson Financial took, because 50% of the bikes back then were financed through Harley Davidson Financial. And they took a hell of a blow from all the repossessions. And see, not only did they lose the money from the bikes that they had to repossess, once again, this is more going into the used market. So it's driving down the prices even more. I want to tell you, I was picking them up dirt cheap after the recession. Let me know in the comments if you picked up one at a real low price that was super clean right after the recession, or on up into about 2013 is when I started seeing a little bit of a rebound in the used market. But the thing is, most people consider a motorcycle or a bass boat or ATV a luxury item. And if you just got laid off at work and you're trying to find a job and you're trying to make that house note, you're going to let the stuff that you don't, that isn't just something you have to have, you're going to let it be repossessed. You're going to try to sell it or let it be repossessed. Now, that's because not everybody's like old Dave. Now, I'll let the kids go without shoes on their feet before old Dave don't have a Harley Davidson motorcycle under his ass. But, you know, I don't expect everybody to be that way. Now, with the recession hitting, and they were taking such a blow on not only the repossession aspect of it, but the sales. Well, nobody buying no motorcycle. So, I mean, they weren't the only ones that were hurt. You know, it was across the board. You know, I was real lucky that the recession really didn't affect me much because of the job I had. Y'all let me know in the comments if it hurt y'all, or if you had to let your bike go back, or whatever the case may be, because I know a lot of us were suffering through that. But here was the other edge of the sword. You know, it's a two-edged sword on how this played out. And this part of it is still echoing in the halls of Harley Davidson as we speak, as far as driving down sales or their slumping sales and stuff like that. You had an entire generation, we call them millennials, and some of y'all might be millennials watching this video. You had a whole generation of kids that no longer grew up watching their mom or dad ride bikes, polish their bikes, be around bikes. They didn't get to ride a bike, so that passion wasn't created at a young age, or that habit. And we all know that a lot of us, you know, we have a tendency to take after a few trends that our parents have. I know some of us don't want to, but we do it anyway. And you take me, my dad owned a Norton P11 Ranger. My uncle, he had a 57 Panhead. We had a nut down the road we hung out with named Crazy Gary. He had a Panhead. He parked in his living room. And I was exposed to it. So when I became a man, pretty quick I was on a motorcycle. Now, so you got this whole generation of people who have not been exposed to bikes. And that doesn't just hurt Harley Davidson. It's across the board. BMW, Honda, Yamaha, all motorcycle sales are down. And in 2017, when I was really paying attention to, you know, just how bad it was getting, I kind of keep my eye on this stuff. I was headed out to San Diego to see my oldest son graduate Marine Corps boot camp. But part of going out there, we were going to go, you know, kind of make a vacation out of it, go to Yosemite, the National Forest and all that. And the whole time we're sitting there riding around in the woods and stuff in the truck, we're watching ATV bikes go by left and right. And I looked over at my wife and I said, Harley's a fool for not getting in on this market right now, because they're not keeping their finger on the pulse of the industry. They're not seeing where the trends are going. They're too busy, just like they always have, sitting on their laurels and riding what was working plumb to the ground like a Led Zeppelin, which was the whole bad boy image and stuff like that. I mean, that's just the way it is. And finally, 5 years later, when they can barely stop the bleeding, they decide to get into ATV stuff with the Pan America. Y'all let me know in the comments what you think about the Pan America. I personally, you know, I like it, but I live in the Ozark National Forest. I could have a lot of fun with it if I buy one. Now, the other thing is, and this is something that I've thought about for a long time, that I think they left money on the table, is that in the early 80s and on into the 90s, when three-wheelers and all-terrain vehicles, side-by-sides were becoming popular, they didn't take advantage of getting into that market. Now, some people may say, well, why would they? I'll tell you. This is something I noticed living in a rural area around farms and stuff like that. You got these old country boys, and they grew up on the farms or hunting on their Yamaha four-wheelers, Big Bears, or their Honda Ranchers, Polarises, and stuff of that nature. And they're young kids, and they have really good times on them. The four-wheeler never lets them down, and when they become men and they decide they want a bike, well, I mean, they already like a Polaris, they already like a Honda, so it's, makes sense to go buy one of those motorcycles. They don't have anything against them because they had good times on them. Not saying that some didn't come on to the Harley-Davidson side, but I'm just saying Harley-Davidson should have took advantage of that, like every other manufacturer out there. Now, I'm going to touch on this subject. I really didn't even, I'd been planning this video before this even became a controversy. It's funny how this was put out right during Sturgis when so many people are searching that kind of stuff about Sturgis and bikes on their computers, and the algorithm is going to feed it to them. But this whole thing that Robbie fuck a truck, or who gives a fuck, Starbuck, his name's Robbie Starbuck, failed politician, and he's sitting there, spews for views. He's coming up with this crap based off one guy who works at a company, his beliefs. This is not Harley-Davidson's beliefs. I promise you, they are neutral. Like most companies, they're neutral on the subject matter, and there is no way in hell that Harley-Davidson is going to side with anything political that would alienate the core people that are keeping them in business right now, which is guys like me and you. And they're just not going to do it. But you got this guy, and he needs, it's views for views. He needs the views. He's got to rebuild his reputation so that I guarantee you, he's going to run for congressman again, even though he's failed already. And I don't know how a music video producer would make a good lawmaker, but hey, whatever. Now, think about it. I'm sure, yeah, of course, Harley-Davidson can't discriminate or they'd be sued by the federal government. I mean, for the love of God, they already got sued by the EPA and were hit with a hell of a fine, which hurt them even more. But I promise you that there are people in that company from the bottom to the top that work there that feel the same way as that one guy on the board of directors. But I'm going to tell you something. I know this for a fact because I've got lots of friends that work in the corporate side of, say, companies like Lowe's or Kroger's and whatnot. And I can tell you that all those Fortune 500 companies out there have somebody working for them that feels the exact same way as this guy who made the comment that worked at the board of directors for Harley. And that don't mean the company aligns itself with anything of that nature. Kroger's aligns itself, I promise you, with groceries. And Harley-Davidson main focus is motorcycles, especially right now considering they're trying to sell the hell out of them. They can't get rid of them. Now, so if we're going to boycott Harley because a couple people work there that feel a certain way about certain things, then we're going to have to start boycotting everything else. We're going to have to boycott Walmart. My son got fired because he upset somebody who aligned with what this one guy said. He ended up getting fired from Walmart because of it. Now, Lowe's, Kroger's, everything, every big company that we buy crap from, we're going to have to boycott them. I mean, we'll have to start growing our own groceries. And the thing is, we won't be able to use tractors because the refineries, I promise you, somebody there working there feels the same way. And so we can't get diesel fuel for the tractors. So then we're going to have to use picks and hoes and all that. And, it just doesn't make sense. So, like I said, you got to take things with a grain of salt with people like that because there's something that's benefiting them when they come up with this crap. So I'm going to end it here. Go in the kitchen and give me a cold beer. I'll see y'all next one.